All right, it is 6:33, so we're going to get started. In the name of the state of Maine, you are hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of Newcastle and said county and state qualified by law to vote in town affairs to meet at the Lincoln Academy Gymnasium at 81 Academy Hill on Tuesday, the 15th day of October, AD 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Then and there to act upon Article 1 by written ballot and Article 2 to be voted on in an open town meeting. Article 1 to elect a moderator by written ballot to preside at said meeting.
We can't really hear you, unfortunately.
All right, there we go. Article 1 to elect a moderator by written ballot to preside at said meeting.
I nominate Lorraine.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. What's the date? 15/24. Thank you. Okay.
Lorraine Faraday has been elected to moderate the town meeting.
I'm looking at, we're okay now. All right. Okay, just a couple of housekeeping things to start with. Welcome to Newcastle residents and others. If you haven't already, if you want to turn your cell phones off or turn the ringer off anyway. Exits are there, and maybe there if you can get past the fan. And I got...
Sorry, time out. Can anybody hear? Yeah, it's kind of really muffled.
Maybe it's the speaker.
Well, maybe. All right, can you hear me in the orange jacket back there? Okay. All right, he's the farthest away, so I'm going to talk at you. All right. Exits are here, and I think the restrooms are out there. I didn't go to school here, so they're out there. Okay. You look like a very nice crowd. We're going to be civil. We're not going to have any name calling, okay? I don't have to tell you guys that. Okay. First thing I need is a motion from the floor to allow non-Newcastle residents to speak. And I think we'll just do it as a group because, okay. So moved. Do we have a second? All right. And all those in favor? Green cards? Opposed? All right. Motion carries. All right. Article 2. Shall the town amend the core zoning code to define, quote, a retail firearms sales facility use and add permitted districts for the new use and amend the primary secondary school definition as identified below. Did all of you pick up a copy of this in the back so you've read through it? Because it's like 3 pages. You don't want to hear me read that, do you? Okay. So do we have a motion to accept Article 2? Gentleman back there, and a second? You're going to second it? All right. Anyone want a discussion on Article 2? You need to come up and use the microphone here, please. If you want to state your name and the street you live on in Newcastle. This microphone right here, yeah.
Kevin Voigt and 34 Mills Road. And maybe I have a question regarding, so 34 Mills Road is in zone that is a business. I think I'm D5. And my question has to do with, if that is the case, then who is going to regulate, say, a multifamily dwelling, which is a business on that road, and the residents thereof, that's already a business, who could then be held out to further have a business? Does that make sense?
Kevin, are you referring to, this is about the changes to the core zoning code for firearm
Right.
facility sales?
Right, and the facility sales says that there, if I'm reading this correctly, it's based upon where you have, it would be permitted, have a special permit, or it would not be allowed at all, correct? Under the different, like A1, D5, right?
They have to apply for a use permit to sell.
Can't hear you.
I don't.
Is that what you're just talking about, gun sales?
That's correct. Yeah.
Well, they'd have to apply for a use permit, wouldn't they?
Let me, if I understand your question, let me try to answer it. So right now, technically, if I understand it correctly, retail firearm sales facilities is not defined by the code. So what this is doing is, we're defining it and saying where it is allowed, which I guess kind of by default it's anywhere. If it's not regulated, it's kind of just allowed. And so if you're looking at the D5 Village Business District, retail firearm sales facility would require a use permit. And it essentially, each district, I think it follows where retail sales are already allowed. So, you know, so technically I would think that firearm sales would be allowed there as retail sales. So we're kind of splitting this out, retail firearm sales. We're allowing it anywhere where retail firearm sales are, or we're defining how you would get that. And then, in addition to that, I think what everybody is familiar with is there's a buffer from school uses, which is 300 feet. So you would have to, be in a district where it is either where a use permit would be required or expanded use permit would be required. In several districts, it's just not allowed. And you'd have to be at least 300 feet from a school. Not sure if that's entirely clear. Does that answer your question?
Well, I'm not sure that it does.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, because so I just have a question about whether it addresses that. You know, and if it is, it's just around a school, right? Then I just see it as being, that's good. But then if where 16 out of the 18 properties on our street are private residences, but it is zoned business, then how is it that this could impact us? That's what I want to say. This could adversely impact us, right?
I think I.
You'd still have to apply for a use permit, and if you didn't meet the criteria, you would be denied, wouldn't you?
So I think this is, if you were in let's say the Village Business District right now, if someone were to propose to put a retail firearm facility there, which is not defined by the code, but if someone wanted to open a gun store, for lack of a better term, they would essentially apply for a retail sales permit. Is just from off, as close as I can think on the top of my head, I don't have the code memorized, but I would think that would fall under retail sales right now. Tomorrow, assuming this passes, you wouldn't fall under retail sales anymore. You would fall under retail firearm sales facility. So if someone wanted to propose this in the village business district where retail sales are presumably permitted use, they could, regardless of how close to a school they are or not. What this does is kind of separate retail sales from retail firearm sales facility so that we can specifically regulate retail firearm sales facilities, and then pushes them away from schools 300 feet. So if you are in an area where, let's say right now, D5, to just continue with that, where a use permit would be required for a retail firearm sales facility, right now you would just apply for a retail sales facility. We don't distinguish between the two. So it's not necessarily adding this as an allowed use in the D5. Kind of already is an allowed use. We are just defining it separately so that we can regulate it more specifically and have a buffer that applies only to retail firearm sales facilities. I hope that answers the question.
Do we have any other questions or discussion? Yes.
Kathleen Leslie, Lynch Road, Newcastle. What is the difference between an expanded use permit and a use permit?
So a use permit really is anytime you want to establish a new use, you have basically, you go to the code enforcement officer and say, I'd like to do a retail store in this district. And they review it and permit it, assuming it meets all the standards. It's kind of I think the lowest barrier to getting to establishing a use. Expanded use permit has, I think, a little bit more, well, it's a little bit higher of a standard, which is you would do it within building groups, which is, there's some more standards. Mainly you need like 5 acres to do it is really the big standard. If you have 5 acres, you can do an expanded use. If you have less than 5 acres, you wouldn't be able to do an expanded use. I believe there are some other standards, but it's just a little bit, I think that one still goes to the planning, to the code enforcement officer, or does that need to go to planning board? Not, go code enforcement officer, so it still is reviewed by the code enforcement officer, but if you have 5 acres, you have more flexibility in kind of building siting that you're allowed to do, and as long as you have those 5 or more acres, there's also additional uses that you can kind of do as long as you have that space. So it's an additional standard, additional hurdle.
Just going to offer to help Michael. I'm Kevin Sutherland. I'm the town manager. I don't live in Newcastle, so thank you all for allowing actually both of us to speak tonight. Looking at this first page where it says Article 2, and you see the list of the different zones we have in our community, and you see retail firearm sales facility, all of those additional pieces, the one that says expanded use permit required, use not allowed, use permit required, those are exactly what retail sales already says. So all we did is replicate that when we created this new definition. So expanded use is already something that's part of our process. And as Michael said, it's really just for this particular use in the rural district about having the acreage to provide that new expansion of the business or use. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, here to help. Michael's had a long day, so.
Any other questions while these gentlemen are up here? Or even if they're not? Okay. All right. Seeing no other comments or questions, all those in favor of Article 2, raise your green cards here. Okay, all those opposed? All right, Article 2 passes. I think that completes our part of the festivities, yes? Okay. All right. You guys have to declare us in recess if we are. All right, you're in recess, go home. Or go somewhere. You're not, okay, the special meeting's in recess, sorry.
We are having our regularly scheduled select board meeting right now if you want to hang out. Otherwise, you can stream it or read the minutes later. Thank you.
All righty. Whoa, that's loud. I'm going to call the October 15th, 2024 Select Board meeting to order. It is now 7 p.m. Do we have any amendments to the agenda tonight? No. All right, if there's none, then do we have a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting of September 23rd? Why am I dating back?
So moved.
There we go.
Second that.
Second by Rufus. Does anyone have any corrections, additions, any discussion on it? No, looks good. All right, then all in favor of approving the minutes? Passes 5-0. Moving on to public comments on items not on the agenda tonight. Do we have anybody who wants to speak on something? You look like you do. I think Larry's at the hot mic over there. Okay. Just it's for the recording purposes, so that the whole world can tune in at some point.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Louis Rector, and I reside at 22 Mills Road, which is tax map 13, lot 11. A couple weeks ago, CMP was looking to set a pole beside my property, and they said that they was going to get an easement from lot 10 next to me, and I said, well, how can that be? That's not his property. And they said that the town has acquired that property, and the town was going to give the person on 10 Mills Road an easement. As the Select Board is aware, state law and the town tax acquired property policy requires the town to give several notices to the former owner of the tax acquired property prior to selling it. The town then selling the property must sell the property with real estate broker, open market for the property, fair market value, and pay the former owner the sales and anything above the taxes and the cost. While not equivalent to selling the entire property, granting an easement means the town would be giving up the rights associated with the property. The town does not have the right to grant easements over tax-acquired property, particularly not without notifying, and compensating the former owner of the affected property. If the town intends to grant the easement for Lot 11, it should comply with the same notice and payment requirements under the state law and town policy that would apply for the sale of the entire property. Thank you.
Is that something we can look into for us?
I believe that most of Mr. Rector's concerns will be addressed as part of agenda item 6B.
Okay. So we'll see if, when we get down to
6B.
Yep, it is 6B. Maybe some of that will get addressed. We'll see where we're going with this. Anyone else have any comments on items not on the agenda tonight? Okay, then we will move on to unfinished business 5A, the harbor management ordinance. Something we've been working on for a while. So this is just the ordinances we've agreed or read through it a couple months ago.
Yeah, this was read through with the select board from Damascotta back in January of 2024. And then most recently, this board briefly discussed a few additional small grammatical changes in September. And now I'm asking you to call a public hearing so we can address this as a part of a joint special town meeting in December with Damascotta, which is another item further on the agenda.
All right, first we have to schedule a public hearing then.
Correct. That's the process. The board
Okay.
has to have a public hearing on it.
All right, do I have a motion to schedule a public hearing for the amendments to the harbor management ordinance on Tuesday, November 12th, 2024 at 7 p.m.? All right, moved by Tor,
Second.
seconded by Ben. Does anybody have any? Spider. Sorry. Don't like them crawling at me. Does anybody have any discussion or any questions on this? No? All right, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Let's see. Item 5B is the joint shellfish conservation ordinance, pretty much the same thing.
Correct. The Shellfish Conservation Committee met in August, reviewed some revisions, worked, make some changes. We also spoke with DMR. They were comfortable with the decision, the changes that were made, and have already pre-authorized the version that's in front of you. So once we move forward with a public hearing, they can give us a letter, and that letter will basically say, once this is in place, it's official with you as well.
Okay. Then, do I have a motion to schedule a public hearing for the amendments to the joint shellfish conservation ordinance on Tuesday, November 12th, 2024 at 7 p.m.?
So moved.
Moved by Rufus, seconded by Tor. Any other discussion? All right, then all in favor? All right, passes 5-0. Let's see. Back to the top. Unfinished business, 5C, shoreline zoning ordinance, tree harvesting.
So we made amendments to the shoreland zoning as part of our annual town meeting. We sent that information to the state. The state has finally gotten back to us and said it's approved on a couple of conditions. What we're doing here is basically removing 2 items from a table that are no longer our responsibility. It's now on the state. They also had some suggestions for additional definitions that could be removed. That wasn't necessarily discussed with the planning board at their prior meeting, but it is something we're hoping that the select board will move forward with and then now call the public hearing for the select board, or for the planning board, with all of those changes. And I provided the documentation, the letter from the state, the cover letter, the email saying we misplaced sending this to you a month or so ago. The cover letter, as well as links to the full conditional approval, the shoreline zoning with the amendments, and then just a quick cheat sheet of the amendments being proposed. So all the information is in the packet. If there's questions, I'm happy to, and Michael's still here, so thank you, Michael, if you have any questions.
All right. Then I guess we can discuss it. Do we have a motion to move forward with the process to amend the shoreline zoning ordinance and direct the planning board to hold a public hearing on the proposed changes at their November 21st, 2024 meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Rufus, seconded by Tor. Does anyone have any questions or discussion on that?
I just want to clarify that tree harvesting is now the state's.
Tree harvesting is administered by the state
Okay.
as part of our change to the zoning ordinance.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Just to clarify,
Oh, yeah.
timber harvesting within the shoreland.
Sorry, yes.
That is
Yes.
only the timber harvesting we're talking about, nothing outside the
Yep.
shoreland.
Cutting trees, just cutting a single tree or dead tree still comes to the code enforcement officer in the shoreline zone.
Does anyone have any questions? All right, then all in favor?
Thank you, Pat.
Okay, passes 5-0. Let's see. 5D, special town meeting. So this is our joint one with Damascotta.
Correct. The intent here would be that the 2 towns would meet at the same time on December 10th to review these 2 ordinances, or 2 of the 3 ordinances we just talked about. And then once those 2 meetings are done, side by side, we break off and do our own special town meeting in the same facility at the Great Salt Bay School to address the shoreland zoning cleanup and potentially another ordinance if I can get my act together and get things in front of you in time.
Okay, then, let's see, do I have a motion to establish a special town meeting for December 10th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. in the Great Salt Bay School cafeteria on Main Street in Damascotta, and to notify the town clerk?
So moved.
Moved by Ben, seconded by Tom. Does anybody have any questions about it or any concerns? Anybody else? No? All right, then all in favor? Okay, passes 5-0. Item 5E, snowplow contract for 2024 to 2028. All right. So this starts as soon as our first snow falls this year.
Yeah, technically this starts September 1st, but, retroactive payment, but I drafted this based on your former contract. Our attorneys reviewed it, and since then, if you'll see in my town manager report, there's a link there that takes you to a couple of small other edits, something like instead of MDOT, it says MOOT, so it's a moot. There's some little things in there. The cost initially for, I think hauling was $6 per hour, now it's 10. I'm sorry, let me pull that document up.
It's for the salt.
Salt, yeah, thank you.
I mean, that
Salt per
seems-
pound, it's $6 per pound?
Per ton.
Per ton, yeah, better not be per pound.
No, ton.
Per ton. There it is. Hauling rate of not more than $6 per ton will be allowed to cover transportation costs. And I asked, is this too low, given this contract was developed back in 2019? Seth's comment to that was, it's probably closer to 10.
Yeah, that seemed pretty low to me, because, I mean, they're hauling from Portland, is that correct?
That's where the barge comes in.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's like $200. Like, that's not a lot.
So there's also some language at the end about a bond, but we fixed that further up in the surety bond instead of a bond for the bid, because initially this was drafted based off of a bid, and now we're extending or rewriting a new contract with the contractor. I had additional comments, something about the language of it. I phrase it as a 3-year contract with a 2-year extension. For him to, or for Hagar Enterprises to leverage that contract for financing, it's better if it's a 5-year contract with an option to terminate after 3 years. Just the language. So I'm looking to modify the language. So I think what I put in the report to you was just asked to consider the motion that empowers me, the town manager, to sign a contract understanding these parameters as a board. If not, I can wait another 2 weeks and just hope for no snow, but
And I looked, it's a 3% increase each year.
it is. It is initially what he quoted us from the April, and it's a 3% increase year over year.
Which doesn't seem ridiculous.
I was maybe confused on one part, just the materials and application. It says the contractor shall supply and apply sand mixed with not less than 80 to 100 pounds of salt per cubic yard when stockpiling these materials. And then the town
Supplies the
supplies the salt.
salt.
So are we supplying the salt that they're mixing with the sand, or are we just supplying the salt that is applied
We are just applying, we are paid for the salt.
for all of the salt?
Salt.
Okay, okay.
I had that same question.
Because it's sort of the way it's said, maybe the contractor is paying for the salt that's mixed with the sand, and then we're paying for salt that's applied without the sand.
I'll make sure that's clarified in
Okay.
the final contract. Because I think the understanding was contractor was responsible for mixing their own salt with the sand
Right,
for that piece of it, and just the salt application was our responsibility.
right.
I believe that's the way
That's
the
how I
contract
read
was.
it,
Yep.
but it could be misconstrued.
And I'll make sure that's clarified.
Okay.
Does attachment C, is it intentionally blank or with the staffing and equipment to be used?
No, I was going to have him fill that out as part of the approval of the contract. He was away for the last week when I was trying to put this together, so getting that information ahead of time was hard.
And then also the damages, part of that. The mailbox repair is handled as long as it's not in the roadway. So is there a way that we can notify the townspeople, like, if your mailbox is within this distance of the center line and it gets wiped out by the snowplow, it's not their fault? Like, is that written somewhere that's easy to find?
No, it usually comes in the form of a phone call, an angry phone call to my office.
That's what I'm trying to avoid, Kevin.
the right of way can change.
Well, that just seems like if you know, it's in the contract that mailboxes are going to be repaired by the contractor, then people might think that any mailbox is going to be repaired by the contractor. Maybe it should be specified, or
Most of the time, they're not going to be repaired.
yeah,
Because they're
that's
in the-
that,
they're in the
and I
right
want to
way,
get
yeah.
people's hopes up, I guess.
Yeah.
You know that, oh, my mailbox is going to get repaired, and then, well, actually, your mailbox was only 12 feet from the center line, and so it's not going to get repaired. Maybe if there was a way that we could post that for public consumption easily.
I'll work on some language
just
for
a
an
thought.
announcement. Sure.
Any other questions? Concerns?
No, I thought the 5-year change is fair. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no downside to the town because we can terminate after 3 years.
Right. It's the same, the 5-year, when we get out after 3, is the same as a 3-year with a 2-year extension. Anyone else have any questions? No. All right, then, do I have a motion to authorize the town manager to sign a 3 or 5-year, whatever we work out, contract for snow removal with Hager Enterprises between the fall of 2024 and spring of, it would be 2030, or 2028.
2020, yeah, 2030.
28.
Spring of 20,
Wait,
2030.
4, 5,
2030.
6, 7.
spring of 2030.
Holy cow. Okay. Do I have a
Yeah, I'll
motion?
move that.
Moved by George.
I'll second.
Seconded by Ben. If there's no more discussion, then all in favor? Passes 5-0.
Supposed to be flying instead of using cars in 2030.
Yes, I heard that.
Well, then we can end the contract after 3 years and just
We
fly.
don't even need roads.
Right.
No more roads.
Where we're going, we don't even need roads.
All right, new business 6A, abatements and supplements. I mean, I guess these were pretty self-explanatory. We had some abatements and some
Yep.
missed taxing.
Yeah, each of the items under the abatements, Jim has provided a little context of
Yep.
what the request was for. He does his due diligence.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing that he caught it. Or did it get caught?
It got caught and brought to our attention, the last one especially, the $5,700 abatement, when we transferred from Trio SQL over to Trio Web, there was a duplication of the record. And Jim did a very thorough review of our entire database to make sure that that didn't happen more than once, because, boy, that would be
Yeah, that's not good.
expensive if that was the case.
Yeah. So I guess we handle these separately. So then do I have a motion to sign the abatement certificate for abatements 2024-2025, 002 to 007, and the supplemental tax warrant and tax certificate as recommended by Assessor's Agent Murphy?
So moved.
Moved by Rufus.
Second.
Seconded by Ben. Anyone have any questions at all on it? Discussions? All right, if not, then all in favor? Passes 5-0. Hold on, I jumped the gun here and went up to the top. Was there anything, let's see, did we need to sign a couple of documents.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
It's on your desk.
It's on my desk.
We'll take a field trip.
Oh, well, everybody's trying to stop in the office this week. Okay, then we'll go on to item 6B. Have your feedback. Don't know what's causing it. So we're on to the Lincoln County Affordable Housing ARPA funds.
Okay. So I'm going to hope to try to address Mr. Rector's comments as well and questions. In January of 2024, the town, by automatic tax foreclosure, came into possession of vacant land at map 13, lot 11. It's located in the Village Business District near downtown along Mills Road. I'll add the Select Board has met a few times to discuss interest in maintaining that parcel for municipal use, which under new state statute requires the appraisal of the property and then to reimburse the former owner the difference between what was owed in taxes plus some attorney fees or administrative fees, the difference of that appraisal and those costs. Knowing that, knowing the interest of addressing housing and the housing crisis we have, knowing that that site could be utilized for park or playground space or access to the cemetery that's back behind there, the board advised me to explore what it would take to get an appraisal done. And in that time, additional interest has shown about trying to get electrical power to that site or the property next door, as well as working to find an appraiser to do the appraisal of the property, in the hopes and intent of basically owning the property long term. The board has not taken formal action on any of those events yet. The only thing that's happened so far is the CMP did reach out to verify that we did acquire the property in automatic foreclosure, and we're working to consider municipal use. At that same time, and what's in front of you tonight, there ARPA funds from Lincoln County have been made available for housing need and housing options. And tonight's letter of support, if approved by the board, would, I think, essentially solidify the cost to purchase the property, so it wouldn't be bared by the taxpayers of Newcastle. With that and the appraisal done, the town can officially use it for municipal use. If we don't get the funding and the town wants to go a different direction, we still have those options as well. So what I wrote in the item commentary, we became aware of that grant opportunity from Lincoln County, and they were looking for a letter of interest. The town submitted a letter expressing our interest, and due to the new state statutes, we need to pay the former owner appraised value minus back taxes and fees to retain the property. The request to Lincoln County was for at least $120,000 for the payoff to retain the property, and hopefully some site plan work. We're currently working to get the parcel appraised to have a better understanding of what that number might be. And we've responded to some follow-up questions and have met with the review committee. So the final step is your letter of support.
So a lot of people work there.
And the letter of support is just to receive the funds, right?
Correct.
That's not to do any development, it's just...
This opportunity will give the town of Newcastle a say in what and how the parcel is developed, ensuring the programming and developing match our comprehensive plan and goals for Newcastle. So you're expressing your support to secure that funding.
Any questions on that? Did anyone else have any questions on it? Sorry, Kevin. It's not our normal setup where you normally would have a mic back there.
Put that mic on your side.
Okay. Tom jumped off the table.
Yep. You can't hide.
No.
It's lot 11. Is it the vacant house adjacent to the school?
No.
There's the apartments?
There's no house there.
It's just a field.
And is that field accessible to Academy Road, or, is there some form of access?
Yes, there's a stretch of access from Mills Road up next to Mr. Rector's parcel, between Mr. Rector's parcel and Mr. Nelson's parcel.
Go ahead.
So I'm Louis Rector. I didn't quite understand what you were saying. You're talking about applying for a grant to purchase the land?
Well, technically, we own the land through tax foreclosure, but what's required by law now under the new state statute is that we have to reimburse the former owner the difference between what they owed us in taxes and fees, and they would get the retention of what the appraised value comes in at.
So where are you at on that?
I'm hoping that this grant will give us the funding we need to do that. I'm waiting for the appraisal to come back from the appraising company.
Will the townspeople have any say in it?
If it's paid for by grant funding, it will not be a decision of the town. If we have to use property taxes, yes, it would be a decision at an annual town meeting or special town meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Yep. Oh, wait a minute. Go ahead. Be in
Just
line.
be in
there.
line.
So, Kevin Voigt again. So then, this piece of property then would have to be within, somebody would have to have access to get back there to develop it into affordable houses? Or is there some other, how is that going to happen?
There's a wide enough lane from Mills Road back to the parcel that's part of that parcel.
I'm Rob Blood. Sorry, I didn't understand. Is the town developing affordable housing as part of purchasing the land?
Potentially. I think what's envisioned is to first acquire the property out and determine municipal use. And if that's retention of the land for a housing project, we would likely retain, this is just kind of what I've been thinking about and proposing to the board, is retaining the land and then working with someone to build a facility on it, own the property, and own the responsibility to manage it based on whatever programming requirements we have. So part of this grant that we applied for, that we also got, and I'll talk about in the town meeting, or the town manager's report, was about assuring housing for first responders, and secondarily for municipal and school employees, because they're struggling to find housing in these areas.
Yeah.
So if we can create a program legally and make it work financially, we would be a partner in seeing that develop. So I'm looking at public-private partnerships, potentially.
But the grant money would not be available unless you were developing it for affordable housing, presumably?
Well,
Or-
the grant funding that we're looking to
Applying.
get to purchase the parcel would probably come with contingency that some sort of housing gets developed there. Yes.
Within a time frame, and presumably.
Presumably, well, the purchase would happen, the town would retain it, and then, yeah, we probably have several years to get the housing done.
All right. Understood.
So back to Louis' question on the pole, right? Louis, you had a question you started with about the power pole. Did you get an answer to that question? Because the way I understood your question was, can the town put a pole? Does the town have rights to set a pole and grant an easement on that lot to set a pole? Isn't that the way I understand your question?
It's my understanding that until they get the appraisal and purchase it, they can't give an easement by law.
And that's what we're working through right now. Nothing's been signed by the town to say that we're agreeing to an easement. Right now, it's being considered. So I don't have a response from the attorney or the easement itself. So I just needed to continue to move the process forward with CMP so that they could draft the easement and deliver it to us.
Steps.
Yeah, so nothing has been done to commit to that yet. It's simply, the potential is in process.
Correct. Everything's just lining it up to then bring forward as that public part of the process, including the appraisal. I still haven't even signed a contract with an appraisal firm, but I do have a timeline. So.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Exactly the way I was told by my lawyer.
All right, there's no other, well, let me get back to the beginning here. Sorry, I scrolled through a bunch of pages, making sure we had everything covered. All right, then do I have a motion to approve the letter of support for the funding to retain the parcel map 13, lot 11 in Newcastle?
So moved.
Moved by Ben, seconded by Rufus. If there's no other discussion, then all in favor? So we'll do that 5-0. Okay, we're getting down there. Fiscal year warrant. I guess we'll start right off. Do I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 8th AP warrant for $82,742.39?
So moved.
Moved by Ben, seconded by Tom. Anyone have any questions or anything they want clarification on?
Just $80 O-ring? I mean, big one? What's the?
Yeah, they're large.
They're large. Okay, that's what I figured. I was like,
We had some fittings.
It seems, was that a typo or? Okay.
Yeah, there was some fittings that had some cover on it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured, just wanted to check on that.
Yeah. Okay, then if there's no other concerns or questions, all in favor of approving the warrant? All right, passes 5-0. Town manager report, Kevin?
I'm very happy to announce that we did and I kind of circled around a little bit, but the DECD, Department of Economic and Community Development Housing Opportunity Program Municipal Grant, which we submitted in March, or Damerscott submitted on behalf of both towns. We were assisted by Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission to draft the grant. We're one of the highest scores and received a grant from them. We found out last week. So 7 months later, we received, and the next step is contract drafting, and I'll give you the too long didn't read version of what this request was. It was for site analysis of 4 different sites, 2 in each town, to include survey work and concept site plans for multi-housing units. And these multi-housing units would be, again, the first responder focus, or trying to create a program where it incentivizes or maybe discounts the rent for people who decide to join the volunteer fire department or become members of the CLC ambulance or are, and further down the line, maybe for municipal employees or school employees, looking at municipal workers. So that was the intent of it. With that, it would also include the architectural renderings of one site per town to just try to build interest and then find developers to help us do the projects.
Identified yet, or is that?
No, that's
all
part of
the process?
I mean, we've talked, and I'll definitely take ideas about sites that could be developed, but to feed to whoever we end up doing an RFP for. But yeah, it's all going to require RFP process. So this is probably another 6 months to a year out before we have some things in front of us, but
So are we behind schedule? Because some of these dates look like we should have an architect and surveyor established now.
we should, but I have to wait till I have a contract with DEC.
No, I understand. I just want to make sure that we're not losing some window of time. If there's some
Yeah,
flexibility in that schedule.
No, I can hear you.
Yeah, there you go. There's some flexibility in that schedule. We're not losing out on anything because the grant stipulates some dates that are.
I'm pretty sure they're going to
Fleeting.
modify
Yeah,
those.
good, all right.
I'm pretty sure the state's going to modify those. What I understand is the reason why there was such a delay in responses is because they were looking to hire somebody specifically to help with all this money that's now the state has put towards housing. They've hired someone specifically to address it. It took them a few months to find the right person. So they're a little behind. I'm pretty sure they're going to be flexible with the dates, and with the dates we even submitted initially based on this. I also think that it's all going to be partially contingent on doing wetland delineation. We live in a very wet area, so yes, wetland delineation work will have to be done, and that's usually in the spring. So we're probably beyond that before anything could be done, and I'm going to make sure that that's included in whatever contract gets approved with DECD. So that's the big exciting one, and that's $125,000. By partnering with Damerscott, we actually got a larger sum of money, and really we should be thinking about housing collectively anyway, which we have been, and it is, the top thing that the two joint select boards have identified. So.
And the housing doesn't just support Newcastle residents, right? It
No.
supports Damerscott
And other surrounding towns.
and Edgecombe or maybe.
Yeah, ideally the concept would be if maybe you're a volunteer firefighter for any one of the fire companies, you get the discount on the rent. Okay, other items. So next meeting, I've invited Heather Leslie to come and do a quick presentation about what she's trying to help us do, which is find grant money to address climate resiliency. Heather's a professor of marine sciences with the University of Maine's Darling Marine Center, and she already has written a grant or pre-proposal grant on the behalf of the two towns. I wrote a letter of support. There's links to all of those documents in my manager report. Trying to do some of the outreach and education component of it, looking at our estuaries and involving art. So it's kind of a neat proposal. It doesn't require a lot on us other than maybe some of my time, which isn't in high demand these days. But I'm willing to climate resiliency and climate action is kind of central to who I am. So I'm willing to commit a little time to making sure this gets launched.
Is she going to, I'm blanking on the organization that came here, we did the day workshop with.
She did not attend that meeting.
But is they are a source of
There are
funding.
aspects of that, and I shared all of those documents
Okay,
with
good.
her, so she could identify things where she can help fill in the gaps in terms of grant opportunities.
Okay, great.
But Heather's going to come by at our next meeting and just do a quick presentation about what she's done in the past and what she hopes to do in the future for the town as a resident and member of our Shellfish Conservation Commission.
That's excellent.
Another item, Ask Grant program. Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission awards assistance with specific know-how grants each year. They sent out a notice last month saying that they had room for one more grant. I applied. They're meeting tonight to discuss. It's for $2,500, and I proposed using that money. It's for technical assistance. So I have not had a lot of time to go out and collect data with a GPS coordinate device about where our structural inefficiencies in our roads are. So I'm going to look to hire someone to just go out, collect photos, and map it all with GPS to show exactly where our alligator cracks are, our edge cracking, our line cracks, our rutting. There's a whole host of words and situations with little parts of our roads. But I think it'll help influence our with the visuals from that, it'll help influence next year's road capital program. Visually, we'll be able to say, okay, here's clearly the red areas, here's the green areas, we need to focus on fixing some of the red areas. In a way, we're fortunate because this board and prior boards have put a lot of time and effort into funding the roads, but I think we're getting to the nitty-gritty where we're going to have to just know exactly which ones are the worst, even though there might be only half a mile or a mile and a half or not even that. They still need to be done. We just need to decide maybe with data rather than who's going to try to advocate for this or that. So I hope to present that to you as part of the budget process, and I'm using that. I would look to use that $2,500 to pay for someone other than me or my 4-year-old son to collect that data.
We are in a different place than we were 5 years ago when everything needed to be fixed.
Yes, you are. And
Yeah.
now you're in a place where data will help you decide what to fix.
Yeah.
So kudos to you, this board, for putting the resources behind roads, and the town for approving it. Sheepscot Road paving, speaking of paving, Sheepscot Road is actually a state aid road, and I've just been trying to play catch up with the DOT inspector for this road as they look to pave it, and it's just been cat and mouse, and it just kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. I think I initially said it was going to be in July, and then I pushed it to August, and then I didn't hear anything for a month or so. I just found out they postponed till next spring. So Sheepscot Road will not be paved until next
July,
spring.
you just didn't specify which year.
Correct. I did say July. It's probably July 2025 at this point. Absentee ballots, again, we're still accepting them. There's information about how to call our office, email the clerk, or stop in. You can also vote absentee at the town office during office hours. So if you want to come in and get an absentee, then go sit around the corner, fill out your ballot, and submit it right there, you are welcome to do so. So of the roughly 1,800 registered voters in Newcastle, we had 245 absentee ballots have been issued, so about 14% have been sent out. So if you're not a registered voter in Maine or Newcastle, you'll need to come in to register to vote with proof of identification and proof of residency. Village Partnership Initiative. So I have a new save the date. At the last meeting I shared, November 14th was as the setup date for the Village Partnership Initiative. Unfortunately, we had to move the date due to another community outreach event. Oh, and I didn't put the next item in, so oops. Wright Pierce Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission, MDOT, and the town of Newcastle have now landed on Tuesday, November 19th from 6 to 8 for the second community outreach workshop regarding the downtown traffic nodes and streetscape redesign. So thank you to the Newcastle Fire Department for moving their training that night to accommodate this effort. More information will be available in the weeks and months ahead.
And this will be at the community room, like last
Correct,
time?
it will be. Now, I didn't put it in my report, but I've been working with, I'm serving on an advisory committee that's looking at climate resiliency for communities and making sure that the information that emergency management has, that service providers provide, is available and understood. So we're hosting a community dinner to do some of this outreach on the 14th. The location has not been set, but I'm pretty certain it'll be in Waldoboro. But we're inviting residents from all throughout Lincoln County to attend. I'll make sure that that information gets shared as part of my next manager report. And then upcoming agenda items, I dropped ground lease agreement. It was on there for almost a year. There's been too many other priorities right now, and I haven't heard from the requesters in a few months. I think they've moved on, so I've dropped that from the upcoming agenda items for now. And the core zoning code, I know that I shared in the September 9th report, I shared recent concern about marine-based uses in the fabrication district. Planning board met and discussed some of the possible changes that could be considered to address this, but is not ready for the board to review. I hope that, and therefore it would not be ready in time for the December 10th meeting. So this item will continue to stay on as we work towards getting it ready for March, a March special town meeting or springtime town meeting. And then the recall of elected municipal officials ordinance, it's really just a cleanup of the language that's in it. It's not anything heavy. By law, by state statute, town can revise what's written in state statute. So the question will be, do you want to just clean up what we have, or do you want to just go back to what the state statute has and repeal it? But I'll bring that to you guys on the 28th. And if you're comfortable with what it says and want to keep it, it's pretty easy to just have a public hearing the same night that you approve the warrant, and I'll give you two versions of the warrant, and it could be addressed on the December 10th. And then last, I'm going to also update you on the priorities at our next meeting. So that's what I got for you.
Should we go back to, I kind of skipped my mind when we were talking about the snow plowing, our whole issue with the, what are we doing with the snow downtown?
Well, that I want to bring to you. I've been back and forth with our road commissioner. I'll inform you that I've had no luck having a conversation about our former snow disposal site that was technically in Damascotta, just out of the right-of-way that's belongs to the town on the, we'll call it the east side of the river in Damascotta. The new owner of the building has been mostly non-responsive, so I'm pretty sure we're not able to dispose of our snow there. So I'm looking at a host of different options. One of the most challenging options was the most simple option would have been to blow the snow into the water off the other side of the bridge, where there's those parking spaces right before you leave Newcastle. The problem is buying the piece of equipment that's necessary is looking at like $225,000. And I was asked to make a decision in 2 days before the piece of equipment was going to be sold to somewhere in Ohio. So I said I can't make that decision, and I can't pull my board together that fast to make that decision. So even if we went that route, we're still a year out from it. So I am searching for several other solutions. I've identified a couple of different spots, and then working with our road commissioner to see if we can make them work. And I still would need to get DEP approval. So I've already reached out to DEP, and I'm starting that process. I would rather bring something more formal to you guys, but I don't have the solution in front of me to present to you yet. But let's just hope no snow between now and, or no sizable amount of snow between now and October 28th.
So I just have to make a comment. And we've talked about this, about dumping snow into the river. I mean, the Damascotta River is our most precious resource that separates two towns here. And we don't know what ends up in roads. There's rubber, every tire that goes over the road is depositing pieces of rubber. There's oil, there's fuel. It all gets collected on our roadways. And we are treating the most precious resource, where we have oyster and aquaculture farmers relying on that resource, and we're dumping our road refuse into that river. That is just bad form, if you ask me. And I think we really ought to think twice about how we use that river. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I've seen a lot of towns that, and sure, it's more labor intensive, but will have a dumping field that it just gets stacked in and then melts. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's a more appropriate thing to look for, rather than another place to dump it into the river would be a place to stack it to melt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not looking to find another location to dump it in the river. I'm trying to find locations to store it while it melts. Yeah, while it melts.
That hopefully
Thor,
doesn't
now that you
require
mention that, I'm
hundreds of
questioning how
thousands
many
of
oysters I
dollars.
eat in the wintertime.
Well,
No, they're filtered. They're
and I
good
wasn't
filtered.
directing it at you. I just want it to be mentioned, because we can't say it enough, I think.
Yeah,
Let's
no,
protect it.
just because it's been done that way
Doesn't
for
mean
years
it's right.
doesn't mean it's the right way to do it.
Exactly.
Maybe we need to rethink that.
Yeah.
I
It's bad
completely
form.
agree.
Let's just go there. It's just
Yeah,
bad
it's bad form.
form. Yeah.
And juju. Okay.
And now I need a glass of water.
Not river water, though. All right. Sorry, I can't get back up to the, oh, that's because you're in your report. All right, I think that's it then. All right. Absent any
Without objection.
objections, I can't improvise.
Just vote.
Without objection.
Whatever you want to say.
Without objection, then we're adjourned.
Say la vie.